super into AI graphics. So I started with StyleGAN. This is probably like in early 2023, I think. And then when Midjourney came out, I definitely was messing around with that. Then started making some content with Disco Diffusion, and then eventually discovered, like, once Stable Diffusion came out, got into GPT-3 to form Warp Diffusion. And then when Model Scope came out, I tried fine tuning it, and I got it to, I essentially created this this fine tune of Model Scope called Zero Scope, which basically took the really like low res model that had a Shutterstock watermark on it and made it a much higher quality model, and kind of mixed it with like a workflow technique that allowed me to basically upscale it using a high res fix. And this worked super well. And then I ended up working at Runway after this for a year. And then at the same time, I kind of started getting caught up in all this ComfyUI nonsense with Animate Diff. So this is one of the first kind of workflows I started really messing with Animate Diff, where I would take these black and white animations, like this one in the top left here, and then I ran it through a workflow with IP adapter and Animate Diff to create some animations like what you see on the right here. So I would make these in Notch and then process them and make them like this. And actually, I'm just going to switch over this stuff now. So so some of these masks would essentially look like this, and I would put them in as depth maps. So I would use the depth map control net with Animate Diff to then guide the generation to kind of follow these as depth maps. Even though they're just black and white graphics, I told it to interpret them as depth maps. And I use a few other control nets as well. That's that workflow. And then I started, turn this off. So then I started kind of bringing those into Notch, like these loops into Notch, and then using this kind of audio reactive setup to move the timeline of the Animate Diff graphic along with the music. So this way it became kind of an audio reactive thing that I could have going along with the music, and then put some extra effects on top of it. So I'm kind of building it into like more of a performance system. And then here's some other examples of that. So it's kind of taking them and doing effects on them and pulsing them kind of to the music. And then adding additional layers of Animate Diff stuff that would kind of trigger with the, like, one triggers with the kick, one triggers with the snare, and then overlaying them on top of each other. And then, yeah, kind of adding in other displacements and stuff with Touch Designer. So really using it kind of as a way to create content that I didn't feed into this other system. And then I wanted to take it kind of to the next level. So I created this workflow that it will essentially take I'll process everything with a depth map, and then I'll also process with these other preprocessors like the LSD lines and also a DW pose. And so these will do all of these, it'll do all these annotations and then pack it into this one video file so that I can use those annotations for as part of the content. And so this is what the output file would look like. So I would interpolate it a bunch as well. So the depth map is in green, and then the MLSD lines are in red, and then the DW pose is in blue. And this allows me to unpack it afterwards into, like, from the red, green, and blue channels and get the individual annotators. And then once I put this into the system, I can get something like this where I have like annotation like coming in, and then also displacements, and then 2 layers of Animate Diff stuff kind of going on. And this started to feel like a pretty cool kind of system and setup where I could create these real-time graphics that move with the music and use all these annotators. Here's another one that also uses these annotators. And it's kind of fun to use like the MLSD lines to kind of accentuate the motion in certain moments. So I kind of use these annotators in an audio reactive way just for certain kind of moments when things are moving. And then let's see. So then I started kind of going down this rabbit hole of trying to create way better depth maps. And the problem with depth maps, of course, has been that there's this amazing depth map model like Depth Anything, but it only works for individual frames and has no temporal consistency. And so I had this idea to try to use Animate Diff to create consistency between these depth map frames. So this was kind of a first attempt at it. And I used control nets to essentially hold it down. So I actually use the depth and the line art control net to hold down the depth map. And here it is integrated with the rest of the annotators. So we get the new depth map plus all the annotators. And it ends up looking something like this. So it works pretty well, but it has some issues. So you can see that like parts of like the eyes are still dark, even though it does resemble a depth map. There's things that are dark that shouldn't be dark, essentially. So this is kind of an early version of it, and it still provided some really cool, useful depth maps to use, and it ended up making some stuff that kind of looked like this. So now I could kind of bring these graphics out and push them out into 3D space. And this is all being rendered in Notch, by the way. So I'm taking this content into Notch and then using the depth maps to displace the Animate Diff content. And then the MLSD lines are what's actually doing the flashy kind of blue stuff as well. And the camera's kind of moving to the beat as well. And yeah, here's another example of that. Oh, so this is the first one where I actually started integrating the laser with it. So so I can isolate certain parts of the graphics and then trace them with the laser. And in this case, it was the MLSD lines that I traced. And so I'm using all the same annotators and techniques in Animate Diff graphics, but now like actually choosing specific kind of elements to trace with the lasers at certain moments. To create this really cool effect. And so then I have to deal with like having to figure out how to shoot it properly and the right amount of fog in the space and all that kind of stuff. But it was cool to finally get that going because I had this laser I've been playing with for a while, but never really fully integrated it with the rest of everything I was building. So this is kind of the first one where I did that. And then I started thinking of kind of better ways to use the laser in the depth maps. And I found that I could take basically a threshold of the depth map and use that to create like a contour tracer. So I could basically make it look like the lasers are tracing the contours of the Animate Diff graphics. And this created a really cool effect, and it made it feel like it's tracing something that's in physical 3D space. That's like it's kind of almost like a hologram in my space, and is a pretty cool kind of effect that I hadn't really seen before. I also then took that and not only traced it, but then allowed like where the laser was hitting to affect the graphics as well, using Notch. So it's kind of like able to push apart the graphics and also kind of create this like feedback effect wherever the lasers hit. So it's kind of like a it's like a two-way kind of thing between the lasers tracing graphics, and then they're also like drawing into the space as well. This is what the setup looked like in my old apartment, tracing everything, also streaming on Discord at the same time. Yeah, this is kind of my setup that I was using in Los Angeles. So it's like a projector, like a 5,000 lumen projector, and then I have a laser cube up here. It's a 7.5 watt laser cube, and then this really bad laser that I got off Amazon for like $250. It's like okay, and then I rigged up my camera to that and everything. It was a little setup. This is what that show actually looked like. So it, I was able to kind of project on this big surface and and actually use this system in real time for this rave, this warehouse rave that I helped put on. And then, yeah, I started kind of filming myself using the game controller to kind of control this setup. So now I can kind of trigger stuff with Ableton and kind of control things that happen in certain moments and react to music as it's happening, and kind of film the entire process. Kind of show the depth maps a little bit in there sometimes as well, and kind of create this whole little performance system out of it. And here's another kind of clip from this. And then I kind of there was a competition for that Claire Silver was putting on for AI art, and I decided to kind of use this system to create to collaborate with this other musician to create a performance piece, and it ended up getting third place in her contest. So this is kind of what it looked like, but the entire thing was like filmed in like one go. I did like multiple takes, but chose an entire take, and so I kind of had to like rehearse it a few times to get it right. This is just a small clip of it. I don't even know what this image is. Hold on. Oh yeah, okay. So then I kind of went to a completely different thing. So I kind of liked what I was doing with that setup, but I wanted to make it more three-dimensional in a way. So I wanted to make it feel like the space that was kind of inside of the projection area was like a physical space that was kind of in my room. And so I decided to kind of create this like room like generator. So I use control nets to basically control the to control kind of the exterior walls of my generations. I'll show an example first, but it looks like this. So all the content kind of stays within this three-dimensional space in this kind of like box that has a very specific kind of like focal length and everything. And this way it looks like my like it's actually inside of my wall, like it's inset in my wall, and then the laser can kind of scan in there. And I tweaked it. I ended up spending a lot of time tweaking this workflow to really get the content into it. But the way it works essentially is wow, I can't zoom into it right. There we go. The way it works is I have images come in like for IP adapter, and then I caption them as well with Florence, and I also created some content in Notch that's like abstract stuff inside of this kind of room-like space that I use as just a depth map input, similar to the old system where I'm kind of using depth maps to generate from Notch to this to animate diff. And then I generate like 4 images of the room at different frames, so like maybe like 4 of them across the entire video, and then I use those as IP adapter for another setup. And this allowed me to give it a lot of creative freedom while still pinning it down into the space. So I basically generate images first of the space as references, and then I use those images as IP adapters. So I use generate images for IP adapter, and I used pretty much like line art, depth, and canny to pin it down. And I think actually no, I used also the control net what's it called, control GIF as well, which really helps smooth things out in general, and it's something I used in a lot of my workflows, but it's not quite as necessary anymore. And then I have this crazy IP adapter setup that Make It Rad, if you guys know him, he helped me with. And the content that comes out of this looks like kind of what I showed. So these like rooms, and they can get pretty crazy and abstract, but what's really cool is they still stick within this kind of space. It's another one. Yeah, so I got really obsessed with these, and then this is what the actual. So then I started like making even better depth mapping, and with better depth mapping came better normal mapping as well. And And so this is what an actual kind of like processed clip looks like now before I kind of get it into my full system. So I use animate diff again with, so basically the big change in terms of the depth maps, I went down a crazy rabbit hole with these depth maps and it's all using ComfyUI to generate these. So I essentially took, would take input video and then I trained ST 1.5 LoRa's for depth maps and for normal maps. And Phil, Machine Delusions, actually did this first. We were kind of like talking about this, and then he was like, I'm just going to do it. So he trained a style model basically on depth maps and a style model on normal maps. And then we use those in Animate Diff with control nets to create like a temporally consistent depth and normal map. What's really cool about this is that you can take, you know, like a fully generated video or like a shot video or whatever, and you can do real-time relighting with it using the depth maps and the normal maps in Notch or in After Effects or whatever. So you can see I'm kind of moving around this light in here, and I'm able to do relighting and everything on the fly. And yeah, so then bringing that kind of into the whole setup now, I'm able to have the laser trace into this like room, and wherever the laser hits, I'm actually able to put like point lights, and those actually relight the animate diff like room essentially. So now I've kind of like gotten it more into 3D space, so I'm actually able to make it feel like this laser is like going into this virtual room and actually like lighting the room, and I can control it with the music. Here's another kind of example of it. And yeah, so from there, I'm kind of been working on a bunch of weird new stuff. But essentially what my new obsession is here is, oh yeah, actually before that, so I did something recently with the depth maps. So I've done like a few commercial things with the depth maps, but this one worked out really, really well. It's for a David Guetta TV spot. And essentially we took these depth maps and we used them to create these particle effects. So I took like real footage, depth mapped it, and then we displaced a particle system, and then created all of these kind of people dancing in this club, which is pretty cool. And it came out pretty good. It was pretty fun to kind of work on that and really use the depth map setup. It's like super useful for visual effects to have depth maps like that, even if they're not physically accurate. But yeah, recently I've been obsessed with Hunyuan 3D. I think it's super cool. I haven't really tried out Trellis like too much, but I kind of just jumped straight into Hunyuan 3D. So I started by like generating all of these images of these crazy objects. I like trained a LoRa, a Flex LoRa on these objects, and it looks this. So here are a bunch of the objects, and I purposely tried to train them all so they would be on a black background. And I kind of like these like weird devices. I don't even know how to explain them. But anyway, I chose a bunch of those, and then I've been working on this workflow that I started off from one that was on Banadoko, but essentially it will take these images and use Hunyuan 3D to generate a mesh for them, and then do all of the texturing and everything. And I've gotten it to the point now, I haven't fully tested this part of it yet, but I have like roughness and normal maps as well. And so essentially, if you guys haven't used Hunyuan 3D before, yeah, it generates the mesh, and then after it generates the mesh, it actually will try to remove the lighting from it. So you can see over here, this has like lighting baked in because it's just a generated image, and this will actually try to remove the lighting from it so you can apply your own lighting. Then it will it'll generate some new images of the objects from different viewpoints, both in the delit version and the lit version. And then I have it in-paint these back onto the mesh. So it creates like a UV map over here, which is insane. And then it actually puts it projects the textures from these perspectives back into that UV map, and you end up with an actual like textured asset, which is pretty insane. It's kind of insane. It's crazy that we've gotten to this point where you could just actually generate images and then get a 3D model out of it. And so I generated a bunch of these, and then the idea was to kind of take certain elements of these and like trace them with the laser and like sequence them and like put maybe like screens on them and stuff, like where I could put AI graphics onto them. And so what I ended up doing is taking like a bunch of them and sticking them all together like this. Some objects here. Yeah, so like these are all like separate objects generated with Honeywell 3D. And these like, or these green parts that I put on, so I just like manually like put these meshes on here. And this I kind of designated as like spots where lasers will be able to trace. And then like these pink ones are like where I'll be able to put like real-time graphics, like AI generated graphics with stream diffusion. And yeah, so I kind of like prepped out this whole thing and then brought it into Notch. Looks like this. And yeah, so then I have this whole system now where I have the exact position. I like 3D scan this space that I'm in, and I have this everything positioned out so I can actually bring this object into my space. And not only is it like projected and like traced with the laser, but I can bring it out like into the space itself. And just to illustrate this, let me make sure everything, yeah. So it's all lined up. And yeah, this is kind of what it looks like. This is a performance I put together for a recent Civitai event thing. But yeah, the laser is able to kind of trace the parts of this object, and the object kind of like moves around and stuff. And then there's also moments where we just go into full stream diffusion craziness. So there's a new kind of stream diffusion update that allows me to actually do like feedback, which is really, really cool. And that's kind of what this is doing. And it's also tracing that as well. And so I have a whole nother setup that does all the laser tracing down here. If you want to look at it, it essentially just uses the trace SOP to take like incoming pixels and then converts them into paths that then eventually make their way to the laser through like a mapping system. And yeah, so this is kind of what this new setup looks like. I don't know where I'm taking it next, but I really like the way that I can actually create like 3D objects now and then bring them in here, and then also have like stream diffusion stuff going like on its own kind of like screen, and all that kind of stuff. And yeah, you can see like wherever it traces, it creates like a feedback effect that pushes it kind of into my space as well. So yeah, this is pretty much where I've landed at the moment, but definitely going to continue to explore all this stuff. It's been really cool to just mess around with ComfyUI. A lot of the nodes that I used for I created a lot of my own nodes just for automating stuff, like this image directory iterator. It just iterates through a folder of images, so I can give it a bunch of images and it'll iterate through everything to make a ton of 3D models while I'm asleep, because it can take a minute. But yeah, that's pretty much my presentation. So I will go ahead and take questions if we want it.
People are very impressed. Okay, we will take some questions. So just for recording purposes, I'm gonna repeat the questions and then we can answer. Yeah, Z, go ahead.
Hey Spencer, my name is Z. I'm also known as Meta DJ. That's my stage name. So Metaverse DJ. I am just so impressed with what you're doing. It's kind of crazy. Like, it aligns so much with my vision. It's kind of unreal to like see it. I feel like I'm in the future where my mind is visually. And I even just talking to some people ahead of us. Here it is. So I have two questions. First one's quick. Second one really builds on what you just showed here. The first is, do you focus at all on the audio side? Like, are you also producing the music, or are you collaborating with individuals? And if so, are you doing generative music? And then my second question is, coming from the frame as a metaverse DJ that's on virtual platforms and streaming and interacting with those 3D environments, do you envision a future of a fully generative 3D experience? What you're showing in world with the lasers is another thought that I've had, but fully digital, where you have avatars and it's interactive with the music and the avatars can actually interact with it. Could you envision a future like that?
Okay.
Yeah, I'll do the second question first. Yeah, I could definitely see that. I think, honestly, for me, I feel like physical experiences are still, will still be like the place where I put my focus, but having it in a completely virtual environment like allows so much, freedom in terms of what you can create. Like it's absolutely insane. I think that, the halfway point of like having augmented reality, like having something like a Vision Pro, but it's as thin as like glasses on you while you're at a concert and being able to see like virtual graphics everywhere that people are experiencing at the same time we're definitely going to be seeing that, and it's going to be insane. Yeah. And yeah, I do collaborate a lot with different artists. I don't make music myself. I like dabble in it, but I'm not really very good at it at all. And so I usually am collaborating with other artists, and I have generated some stuff with Suno and Udio. I do prefer Udio just because Udio, I feel like the instrumentals are a bit better, and I've had a lot of success extending tracks I like, and then keep extending and extending and extending, and it ends up getting somewhere that's quite interesting. But I haven't really created kind of an complete audiovisual set yet. But it's something I'm looking to do, and I am looking probably for some musical artists to collaborate with kind of in the future more closely to have like a real full performance. But usually I just do visuals for an existing show. And I throw lots of shows in Los Angeles with my friends, and I'll bring this whole system into a tunnel, and we'll just do a show there. So do lots of underground raves and stuff with this setup. So yeah.
Right on. Amazing. I connected with you on X, so hopefully we can stay in touch. That's awesome.
Oh, sick. Hell yeah.
Right. Any other? Rob.
That was incredible. Really awesome to see what you're doing here. I saw you mentioned Dot Simulate on one of your slides. He was actually at the last meetup, so I don't know him really personally other than these meetups, but yeah, just a really interesting community here. And it was funny to see that you called out, I don't know, are you leveraging one of his workflows or something? But cool, not really a question. And then my actual question is, what does the hardware look like for what you're doing here? I can't imagine that a lot of this is just running off of a single, 4090 or whatever. So are you in the cloud, or what are you doing to kind of get these sort of giant workflows going?
Yeah. So first of all, yeah, Dot Simulate and I are really good friends. We've been collaborating since pretty much since like Midjourney came out, I would say, because we're kind of the only two people really using Touch Designer and AI stuff very, very closely. And I help test a lot of stuff for him, and we bounce a lot of ideas back and forth. And I love everything that he does. I'm using Stream Diffusion right now on a second computer. So like with this setup, I pretty much have to. Stream Diffusion is just so heavy that I actually have it on a second computer, which is this computer here. It's kind of just in the black right now, but this is like a travel computer with a 3090 that's currently running Stream Diffusion. And then my computer here is a 4090. So I have like a 3090 and then a 4090 machine. And I try to do as much as I can on my 4090. There are a lot of times where I'm processing many, many, many depth maps and doing like upscales and stuff like that. And when I have to do that, and I need a lot of them, and I need it fast, I will use vast.ai. And so I have some scripts that I can run pretty quickly to download all the models and get all the custom nodes that I need. And I could pretty much be up and running in like 5 or 6 minutes on a good vast.ai instance. And then just upload all my files and just like let them go through all of them. I've had like 8 of them going at once sometimes just to get through it all very, very quickly. Because yeah, it can take a long time to process all of the footage. Just to kind of show you what some of these look like. yeah, like this is actually not super high res, but there's like 300, there's like almost 350 videos in here that have been processed. So because I kind of want to just be able to switch to, I want to have lots of options while I'm performing. So I end up choosing way too many videos to process and have to use a cloud service at that point. But everything is, I try to keep it local if I can. A lot of Flux training as well. I do on Civitai as well, because it's just like their trainer is like really easy to use, and I don't have to tie up my own computer at home. So it works pretty well for that. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you so much for sharing. I'm really inspired by your work. And yeah, I mean, you and Dot Simulate definitely are drawing me towards the touch designer and, you know, AI integration. So thank you. Thanks again.
Yeah, you got it.
All right. Hey, I'm Eliezer. I was just curious, you know, since you're working with like 3D models and stuff, has there been any like good physics AI models that you've been able to like, you know, simulate like how an object or like textile or fabric would be in the real world, but more like just like 3-dimensional. So just curious about that.
Yeah, I know that there is, I don't know how available it is, but I know that there is a model that is meant to estimate those kinds of collisions. I don't know specifically what it was. I think I saw it on like 2-minute papers or something like a while ago, but it's really impressive actually how good some of these video models are getting at simulating physics, I would say, especially with liquids. Like it's pretty much indistinguishable from real life, a lot of the liquid simulation, even with Animate Diff. And yeah, it's continues to get good. There's still like kind of like glitches and stuff that looks like wrong, but it's pretty crazy what you could do with these image to video models and just straight up video models now. But in terms of like real time simulation, I haven't really explored anything that's able to kind of deliver that right now.
No worries, just curious. Thank you.
Yeah.
Zach, great presentation. I was just wondering if you've checked out any of the more recent like video depth models. There's like video depth anything and depth crafter. Like, have you explored those and what are their limitations compared to your approach?
Yeah, so I actually use Depth Crafter as the base for that that project that I showed on here. So Depth Crafter was used for these. I see there's a better kind of breakdown somewhere here. Yeah. So I used Depth Crafter first and then enhanced it with my Animate Diff workflow on top of that using Control-It. So it actually was able to get like better detail. One of the limitations with the Depth Crafter setup is that there's you can't make an extremely long video clip. So you're limited to like, I want to say, I don't know, it's like 150 frames or maybe a little bit more, but it's not very long. And I think it's just a VRAM limitation. So if I got like a really powerful, if I like rented a computer in the cloud, I could probably do longer. But because of that, it's definitely more accurate, like the original depth estimation that you get, and more temporally stable. But yeah, it still can benefit from the additional Animate Diff workflow on top of it, essentially. And also, just as a side note, like there isn't a normal map generator, but there is a way to generate normal maps from the depth maps. And I actually made a node for it. It's like an easy thing to make. I just had Claude write the node for me pretty much, and it worked. And it'll take this depth map and create a normal map. And then I diffuse over that normal map a little bit to make it a little bit better. But that's how I'm essentially able to get these really high quality depth maps. But I'm very excited to see like if we can continue to push the depth maps further, because it's like a really useful thing to have for visual effects. And yeah, just beyond that, I mean, it basically allows us to bring these 2D generations into a 3D kind of space. So yeah, as new depth map models come out, I always kind of just shove them into my system and see like, oh, what can I do now? You know, so kind of the good thing about these AI workflows and in general is that like you have all these models strung together, and like as each one gets better and better, you could just swap them out and like everything just gets better. So it's pretty cool to have the full thing built in such a way that, you know, it's like as things get better, it's you just drop them in and yeah.
Awesome.
I'll go.
Yeah, brilliant.
Joe and Spence, been a long
Yo.
time. So my question is, you've used controllers for like working the laser and stuff like that. Would you like to see more interactive like controller or audio reactiveness in like diffusion or like depth map like generation and stuff like that as things move towards like real time?
Yeah, absolutely. I actually I didn't show it off here, but recently I started messing with like Dot Simulate put out a new kind of update recently that does allow for a proper like feedback loop to work. And with this, I was able to like use a mouse to kind of control like a deform like zoom. And oh my god, it is so much fun. Like I played with it for hours before I like recorded this video. And there really is something about controlling diffusion in real time. Like you can actually get into like a flow state where you're like flying along it and being like, I'm kind of like tracing like certain lines and stuff. And it's so much fun. Like it's going to be a whole nother level when we have these things running this fast, like all the time. Like it's.
You should also check out the WAM model. It's a new world model that came out.
Ooh.
It's basically like you're controlling a camera in diffusion space, like using a controller. So it's kind of wild.
Yeah, that's crazy. I will definitely have to check that out. I'll have to get that from you later. Yeah, very cool.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure I have you on Discord. So yeah, I'll send you.
Yeah, nice. Yeah, it's this actually will it doesn't take a lot to run this. This because of the way this works, it has to wait for a new frame from Stream Diffusion before it processes another one, and so I get the same performance on a 4090 versus a 3090 on this. It's probably about the same on a 4070 Ti as what you're looking at right here. It's crazy fun. I think that yeah, when we have fully interactive like AI generative systems like this, it's going to be a whole nother level. I feel like, you know, people that make music understand that you can, when you have these real-time tools and you're tweaking them, playing around with them, you get into like a flow state. And I don't think we've really fully experienced that in AI just because it takes so long to like generate stuff and like see the results. And you don't really have that intuitive like understanding of like when you tweak settings, then you kind of see the results and you compare them, but it's not the same as like when you tweak something, you see the change instantly, you know? And so I think that it's going to be really exciting to see that happen. It is disappointing that, you know, like when Sora came out, basically everyone just went to the biggest, like tried to make the biggest and smartest models possible. And like the really lightweight real-time models have not really been the focus. So I hope that we get to kind of see that happen again.
Yeah, I'm also trying to champion that sort of like smaller class models. Like definitely have to make a comeback for sure.
Yeah.
Awesome. Any other questions in the crowd? I got one. So for the people who are maybe a little newer to ComfyUI, Spencer, can you tell us a little bit about kind of the process of how you think back to how you initially got into Comfy? Like what were the things that you focused on that helped you get deeper into this craft?
I would say being part of kind of like the community in general on like on Banadoko and like other Discord servers has been like really, really useful because then you're kind of surrounded by people who are like trying stuff and like posting little workflows, and you can learn from those workflows at first and like tweak them. And then I think making the step to just like completely start from scratch is also really great because then you really like can figure out how to build something with a goal in mind. But I think it is good to kind of have a specific goal in mind when you're trying to like build something. And yeah, because I was I really wanted to kind of take black and white animations and kind of make them into something else using Animate Diff. Was kind of my initial like goal for getting into ComfyUI. And yeah, like I started with, you know, very basic Animate Diff, like depth map workflow, I believe. And then just kind of started building and experimenting from there. But I'd say being active in the community and like really, like starting from scratch and trying to build something like that is also really, really useful and will take you pretty far. I think it's, I see a lot of people that kind of get caught up in tutorials and like doing lots and lots of tutorials and like experimenting with some workflows, but never really fully like trying to build their own thing. I think it's important to just like try to do it, even if you're gonna like break everything and fail. Like I think it's once you troubleshoot through all the steps, you're gonna have learned like how everything actually works, and you're gonna be able to take things pretty far. And I would kind of recommend having some sort of goal in mind to kind of like to reach a certain output, or maybe just to explore and see what happens as well, if that's the goal. But it's definitely good to like start from scratch and kind of build up and see what you need. And and then making custom nodes is actually pretty easy as well. You'll find I am able to make them pretty easily with Claude at this point without too much headache. But it depends on how complicated you want them to be as well. So
nice. And to follow up on that, like, so for all the things that you've learned over the past couple of years and to get to this point, what were some of the, you know, the aha moments that you had about, you know, like this thing that I learned that really helped me kind of advance in, you know, in the way that I understand something. And then I have another question about like, what are the things that you wish existed that does not yet exist?
Mm-hmm. I'd say for the aha moments, I'd say the biggest thing that kind of has enabled me to really like move far is like using Claude and ChatGPT to program. I think that like really opens up a whole nother world of like what we can do as artists, because I knew like a little bit before just from Touch Designer. Like there's Python scripting in Touch Designer, but it was always more of like just trying to find the right command or the right thing just to get me like past this one issue. It wasn't really like, I'm gonna make a bunch of stuff in Python. And once ChatGPT came out and then Claude got better and better, I started to really see a lot of potential for artists to actually create the tools that they want in their software. Because if you look at kind of how traditionally these tools have been, like Adobe and stuff, it's basically like engineers like get together and decide like what artists like want to use to create stuff. And for artists to actually just go in there and make the thing they want is seems like a pretty new concept. To be able to not have such a high barrier to entry to create your own tools is, I think, extremely important and really like liberating, and is one of the things I really like about ComfyUI, because it's pretty easy relatively to build a node if you want one, or to kind of, you can string together your own workflow to make whatever you want. And then Touch Designer also is like a really good tool for tool building. So you can kind of build your own piece of software in Touch Designer that is just for you. And then, wait, what was the second part of the question again? I forgot.
The second part is, what are the things that you wish exists that can, you know, help you push even further that is not quite exist yet?
I would say like a video model that works in a frame by frame way in real time would be pretty much like the dream. Like I think that would be really, really cool, because then you would be able to have a developing, like there is one model out there that does it that wasn't publicly released, but essentially instead of generating a video all at once, like a few second video all at once and just giving that to you, it's generating one frame at a time, and you could prompt it through that process, because then you'd be able to essentially stream video content, kind of like how you came to Stream Diffusion, but it would be actual like temporally correct video. And I think that would be insane. I think another thing that has been kind of, I wouldn't say holding back progress, but if there was a way to properly evaluate video that is being generated or created, like in anything with Touch Designer, like shaders or whatever, and then reflect on it and actually improve like its own code, it would be huge. Like an example of that is creating. I've had Claude and a ChatGPT like attempt to create like shaders to replicate certain effects and stuff like that, and then look at what it just made compared to what I wanted, and then iteratively improve the code to try to get it closer. And it's not really able to properly evaluate what it made in order to improve its output. And if we were able to have that feedback loop, it would be possible to like leave it overnight with Touch Designer or whatever and have it like work on creating some sort of node graph or some sort of shader or something to reach a certain goal. And I think that would be absolutely insane because yeah, then it would we're very close to that. It's really just the evaluation part that's tough. So I expect to kind of see some better models for that this year. I think the closest we have right now is like Gemini, which can take a bunch of video and answer some questions about it. But video evaluation is still pretty difficult.
Visual reasoning would be the O3, but for visuals.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Cool. All right, last call. Any questions in the crowd? Marco.
Windows or Linux?
Ooh. Yeah.
I mean, honestly, I started more as a Mac person, but then I adopted Windows because of obviously all the 3D software and Notch and all this stuff. And then I've gotten pretty immersed in it. But if all you want to do is run AI models, like Linux is so much better. It's not even close. I mean, if you're like a lot of the problems that people run into when they're trying to get stuff running in ComfyUI, or any AI project, it basically works instantly in Linux. Like it's insane. So if you rent a cloud instance or something in Linux, like it's much easier to get something running like that than on Windows. And if you want to create a machine like in your space that's just for ComfyUI or just for running AI stuff, it should be just Linux for sure. But ultimately, like I doing tons of stuff in 3D using Touch Designer and Notch and Cinema 4D and all this other stuff, and none of that works on Linux. So it's just not an operating system I can fully commit to. So that's pretty much it.
Nice. Awesome. On that age-old question note, I think it's a good point for us to wrap. Spencer, thank you so much for being here, and yeah, like we all appreciate your presentation. It's really awesome. Can't believe you can do this.
Thanks.
But yeah, for those, before we wrap up, do you have any shout outs that you want to make? Anything that's coming up that you want people to know about?
No, I'll definitely shout out Lyle again because he's amazing. And I'm going to be at the ComfyUI event in Los Angeles as well. If anyone's going to be there, but yeah, that's pretty much it.
Nice. For the record, Lyle was supposed to be here tonight.
I know.
He messaged me like 20 minutes ago. He's like, "No, I can't make it." So I'll give him some credit about that.
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah. Thanks again. We'll hang out here for a little bit, and then we'll head out to a place to get a drink and hang out a little more.
Okay.
Cool. All right. Thanks everybody.
Cool.
Thanks.
See ya.
All right. All right. Thanks, man. I'll
Cool.
talk to you later.
Peace.